Holy cow! I just... Holy cow! What an ending to Season 5! I mean, occasionally we get a story where we question what happened in this episode. And now we get to say what didn't happen. With the Cutie remarks, Starlight Glimmer makes a spectacular return, just as many of us were hoping she would. All the theories and headcanons we've thought up over the years about time travel and MLP comes back in full force. In fact, we get a plethora of fanfiction ideas coming true with all the different timelines. So many old villains make their return, and even fan-favorite characters finally get some interesting development. It was so fascinating seeing the main six filling out all these different roles and having different motivations. And all the while, Twilight and Spike trying to fix things and failing in nearly every way. This was such a fantastic end to Season 5. First off, I love the idea of removing the sonic rain boom from history and its long-lasting effects. I actually talked about this idea a long time ago, trying to figure out how each of the main six would live very different lives. Seeing it come to light was such a treat, and honestly, the only real downside is that the writers had to fit it all in just 2 episodes, and there just wasn't enough time to properly explore everything. We get plenty of adorable moments revisiting each of the main six as fillies, which, by the way, we got to see more of in Season 5 than any other season thus far. If this trend continues, we might actually get an entire episode dedicated to the filly main six next year. And personally, I wouldn't mind that in the least. The appearance of King Sombra was a pleasant surprise, though he still has almost zero dialogue. What I find most fascinating is that Celestia took charge of the situation, rallied the entirety of Equestria behind her, and is taking part in the fighting right alongside her troops. I know this is an alternate timeline, but I sincerely hope this helps to change some fans' perspectives on her character. Even more fascinating is the fact that we get to see not just the soldiers at the front lines, but all the industry and sacrifice that is needed to support them. And some of the main six are actually still filling the roles we've come to expect from them. However, as much as it was really no surprise to see Rainbow Dash right in the middle of the fight, though the prosthetic wing was a nice touch, I was laughing hysterically when the Pie Sisters showed up and broke through that massive boulder together. And yet, the entertaining insanity doesn't stop there. This has got to be the most interesting setup for Zecora in the entire series, trying to save all the ponies she can from being overwhelmed by a changeling invasion. And she almost instantaneously figures out that Twilight is from an alternate timeline, and yet just accepts it with barely any surprise. This is how Zecora needed to be written for years. I cannot wait to see all the fanfiction potential that comes out of this episode alone. Nightmare Moon gets her moment in the spotlight, and so many of the fans rejoice over Luna finally having her chance to be on the throne. It was certainly a fun little scene, and I have to give credit once again for the great voice acting, but I was honestly impressed with how much the animators have improved upon the Timberwolves. These things look so much better than they did back in Season 3. We get a montage of other villain clips, and once again, the only real downside is that the writers didn't have enough time to fully explore all these scenarios. I know we would have all loved seeing Discord go back to his villainous ways for even just a couple minutes. But let's talk about the main focus of this episode, Twilight, Spike, and of course, Starlight Glimmer. Once again, Spike is doing what he does best in a supporting role, keeping Twilight grounded throughout her more obsessive or panicky moments while also providing some great commentary when needed. I admit that initially I was expecting to see Starlight attempt to change the past in order to regain what she had lost, or even spread her influence over the whole of Equestria. But nope, this is all about revenge. This is all about hurting the main six as much as she possibly can. Even after seeing firsthand all the devastation her actions would cause, she still wouldn't relent. Turns out that some ponies aren't looking for anything logical. Some ponies just want to watch the world burn. Okay, maybe it doesn't go quite that far, but this sort of motivation does make her character more interesting. I also thoroughly enjoyed seeing Twilight's attempts fail at every turn. Last time, she wanted to use her friendship speeches to solve the problem. And yet, in the end, it was her magic that helped to save the day. And this time around, with all the knowledge and talent she possessed, raw power still wasn't enough to overcome Starlight. It was a friendship speech that had to save the day. And when you think about it, the many different timeline scenarios actually connect with Starlight's initial conflict as well. We find out that a cutie mark had separated Starlight from her best friend, and that she never wanted to feel that pain and loss ever again. Some of us may see this as petty and childish, and in a way it is. But when that kind of anger and hurt festers over many years, with no attempts to ever let go of that grudge, you'd be surprised what it can lead to, as this very episode shows. The long-standing effects of the main six never getting together had so many widely reaching consequences. The episode was subtly hinting at what happened to Starlight long before we actually got to see it. I love that kind of creative writing in MLP. And what's more, we actually are going to get a change to the status quo. Not from any minuscule changes in the timeline, but rather Starlight is going to join the main cast. I feel she's going to fill a very similar role to Sunset Shimmer, since so much of the fandom have enjoyed her addition to the Equestria Girls series, and I welcome this sort of change to the status quo. Starlight's redemption was a little quick, though not nearly as out of nowhere as Sunset's change, but once again, I consider that due to a lack of time in the episodes themselves. I really can't fault anything more than just little nitpicks with this story. Practically every other season premiere and finale has had major issues with plot holes, short-sighted villains, or even princesses, or making the rest of the cast seem rather helpless in order to make Twilight the hero. I really didn't get that kind of vibe with anything here. The story was very solid and creates immense potential for fanfiction. The villain wasn't trying to take anything over, but rather just hurt Twilight as much as possible. And in every single timeline, the rest of the main six were active in the resistance, or even serving in their best capacity for the villain. Plus, Celestia leading an army is still just fantastic. I'm sure there will be a ton of people who can find little nitpicks with the time traveling, and perhaps the comedy wasn't quite as prevalent as some of the other episodes, though we still got some great laughs here and there. And maybe the ending song is just on par with Let the Rainbow Remind You. But there are just way too many entertaining and even thought-provoking positives for me to give this episode anything less than fantastic. Season 5 was such a great run, and I eagerly await seeing what happens in MLP's future. And now I would love to hear from each of you. Did you enjoy seeing the many different timelines? Or was the story set up just a mess? Was Starlight's redemption a welcome addition? Or perhaps steering the show in the wrong direction? What was your favorite standout moment overall, if you can even pick just one? Do you have any ideas for what might happen in future seasons of MLP? I would like to hear your thoughts on the Cutie remark, and here's to one of the best, if not the best, season in My Little Pony thus far. I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.
You can't stop me no matter what you do.